Well, Martin Luther King was making a grand push for voting rights as he saw the power of voting, as he saw that African Americans weren't able to get their voices heard, as in the South they were prevented from voting, and this is what allowed segregation to continue in the South, because many of the people that pushed for segregation, they were the ones that were holding powerful positions such as sheriffs, district attorneys, and obviously African Americans were going to vote against that, and so they had to keep them from voting, period. So they had to keep the status quo of Jim Crow in place, as well as offer leniency and protection for the KKK. Just like we were talking about in that case with the Freedom Riders, where you had the sheriff actually do the bidding for the KKK and trying to cover up their crime of murder. This is what Martin Luther King was fighting against. He wanted African Americans to get the right to vote, and it certainly wasn't easy. After they passed the Civil Rights Act of 1964, Martin Luther King was definitely focused on the Voting Rights Act and trying to get that passed, as he saw that many African Americans were not allowed to vote due to literacy tests, poll taxes, or just straight up intimidation of the KKK. And when he went to go protest for these voting rights in Selma, he went to the Edmund Pettus Bridge and he met there with a group of protesters, and he was met with pure violence, and the violence actually came from the Alabama state troopers, authorized there by Governor George Wallace. And these state troopers went there, met up with the protesters that were trying to cross the bridge from Selma, and they were eventually trying to reach to Montgomery, and they were violently accosted. They were beat up pretty brazenly. And one famous photo featured future congressman in Congressman Lewis, and how he was actually beaten pretty badly in this event. And this was called Bloody Sunday, where it was literal blood on the streets from these protesters that were fighting for African American rights to vote. And this included one famous man. Well, actually, I shouldn't say he wasn't too famous, but his eulogy was done by a famous man, Martin Luther King. His name is James Reeb, and he was actually he died protesting for African American rights. And what stuck out about James Reeb? James Reeb was white, and James Reeb fully believed in making sure that African Americans got the right to vote, got their integration progress, as well as getting equality. He really believed in that, and he fought for that for years. And unfortunately for Mr. Reeb, when he was there protesting for voting rights, he was killed on Bloody Sunday. And Martin Luther King wanted to make sure that James Reeb was eulogized appropriately. And we'll talk about how Martin Luther King was able to get voting rights passed for his people.